We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Insightful Players series. You can go insightfulplayer.com to find out more information on the Insightful Player and Coach Chrissy Carew. Fantastic how they've teamed up with different players in the NFL, former and current NFL players that provide a fantastic message, and they also do school programs. So you got to go to insightfulplayer.com to purchase the book. And a very interesting person I've interviewed many times, a big superstar of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to welcome the program Insightful Player, Pittsburgh Steeler Andy Russell. And Andy, it's kind of funny how I guess our roads cross again because of how I hooked up with Chrissy. So how are you, Andy?
I'm doing good, Neil, and I'm excited about being involved with the Insightful Players, and I want to give back to the community as best I can. And so I'm very interested in working with young people.
And I'm hoping that we'll team up together because I'm really teamed up with Chrissy, especially what Insightful Players trying to do. And firsthand, we're right in Pittsburgh together. So what an opportunity to get to do that and work together again, especially thank you again for the opportunity of covering your celebrity golf tournament. It was just an unbelievable day to get to interview Art Rooney II and yourself, Dwayne Woodruff, and Rocky Blyer. You can't beat that. And a Hall of Fame, and a Hall of Famer. It was just an unbelievable day.
We'll do that again next year, too.
All right, excellent. I'll definitely put that on the calendar. So Andy, kind of our listeners have learned a lot about you, but one thing that I just can't, I love to talk about is the Super Steelers. And we've talked about how you got involved in the NFL and how your career has led you always were focused on life after football. But I'm really interested to talk about, I guess, the character of playing football for the Steelers and playing under Art Rooney and learning so many specific things. And the Super Steelers, you were in a kind of a losing season type of mentality, and finally things kind of broke, and then the Steelers started winning. So how did it feel finally with so many losing seasons to finally the resurgence of the Pittsburgh Steelers when you played for them and they really didn't win many games?
Well, I really had a interesting kind of football experience in my whole high school. We won every game. We had really great teams in St. Louis, Missouri, and then I played at Missouri University under Dan Devine, and we were always in the top 10 and even number 1 at times. So we had really good teams. I think we lost like 3 games in 3 years. So moving to the Steelers was quite interesting. In my first year, 1963, my rookie year, we almost won the championship.
Really? Oh.
Now, people forget that because we were 7-4. We had 4 ties, which is an unusual thing. But it put us into the final game of the year against the New York Giants, whom we had beaten in Pittsburgh. And we went into Yankee Stadium, and they beat us. And it was very disappointing because if we had gotten into that championship game, it was not called Super Bowl in those days, but it was a championship game, NFL championship game, and it would have been against the Chicago Bears, whom we had tied 17-17. So we knew we could beat them, and so we were that close to a ring in 1963. Then 64 and 5 hours in Germany as a lieutenant in the Army, and I did play football over there in what they called division level football, and that was quite a good experience actually because I coached the team and learned a lot more about the game than being a coach as well as playing, So anyway, and then to come back after the military, and all the great players that were there in '63 from the '50s, guys like Ernie Stottner, Hall of Famer,
right.
They were all gone. And the team was really in trouble with just a severe lack of talent. I mean, they were very good guys. They worked hard, tried hard, but we didn't have the talent to win. So all of a sudden, we're 2-12, 3-11. I mean, it was just awful.
And what do you think changed all that? Changed that winning attitude, changed the way the team developed it. I did not know about the 63. I heard you on one of the sports radio stations talking about the assassination of JFK and all that. And that was a very fascinating history lesson. But the one thing I did not know was the Steelers were really good in 63. But after that time, what turned you guys around? What was that change? Because every sports team has that final or that first focus that changes the mentality of the team. What do you think was the biggest change when you were on that many losing teams?
The biggest change, it was Chuck Noll. I mean, all of a sudden we had this absolutely fantastic coach who just always told us the truth. I mean, you'll never forget his first speech to us. He said, I've been watching the game film since I took the job, and I can tell you guys why you've been losing. Well, you could have heard a pin drop in that room because we had a bunch of good guys who tried hard. And he said that the reason you've been losing is you're not any good. And I'm going to have to get rid of most of you.
Oh, my.
Well, five of us made it from that room to the first Super Bowl, number 9. And that was quite an experience because he was bringing in all these wonderful players, and all of a sudden in the 60s we had higher draft, we had higher location of the draft choice. We were closer to number 1, that kind of thing. But the guys wouldn't even make the team. They were not good players.
Oh.
For some reason, he knew how to recruit. Okay, and Chuck Noll just was a brilliant evaluator of talent, and of course, maybe the greatest choice he ever made was Joe Green, who probably was the player of the decade for any team in the NFL. But then the next year, we had Mike Wagner, Jack Ham, lots of really good players, and they got better and better. And then, of course, people know that 1974. They drafted, I think it was 4 or 5 Hall of Famers, which is unheard of.
Wow. And that's where it kind of really you're seeing that a winning mentality is coming in. People that really are buying into Chuck Noll's system. So tell me how did Noll, rejuvenate you in a way? Because, again, you keep losing, you work hard as a professional, but you also say, hey, when are we ever going to do anything again? He comes in, he cleans house. What kind of person, how did he kind of direct you to be able to play with such fantastic players all around you? What do you think was that edge he gave you, or that idea, you're good enough to play for me, but he had a specific message to tell you to go out and do?
Yeah, he was really a brilliant coach, and I'll never forget the first private meeting I had with him. He had called me in the off season and told me to come over to his office. He wanted to talk to me. And this is the first year he was hired in '69. And I actually was so naive. I went over there thinking he's going to compliment me for making my first Pro Bowl, which I had just previous to that, '68. So as I went over, he just directs me to sit down across from his desk, and he looks up at me and he says, Russell, I've been watching the game films, and I don't like the way you play. He said you're too aggressive, you're too out of control, you're trying to make the big play, and I'm going to have to change the way you play. You're going to play much smarter and be a better player in your 30s than you were in your 20s. And, I knew he was right because when you're losing, you're running around trying like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to hit somebody or get something done or make a big play, and it doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to play your position, and you can't get out of position. And so, Noel was just, and he always told the truth. He just nailed it.
Wow. And that's really interesting for someone to have that leadership quality, to be able to tell somebody, you got to change the way you play. Because could you imagine some of these athletes today, someone coming in as a coach and telling them, you're going to change the way. Coughlin, I heard Tom Coughlin had that kind of certain situation where he would tell the players the truth. And a lot of coaches massage everything and say, oh, everything's going to be fine. Then you end up, here's the door, instead of trying to mold you into the player you're going to be today. And it seems like Coach Knoll did that for you.
Yeah, he was a believer in success is in the details. And he wanted us to be able to not just be good athletes, but good techniques. They wanted us to be able to anticipate what the opponent would do, and be pretty confident that we knew what they were going to do. And I started memorizing the previous 3 years of every opponent, and that worked. It worked for me. It was really a eye opener.
So Noel was a great mentor to you, helping you in that process to get to become the player that you ended up becoming. Who else on the Steelers was great at helping mold you into the player you are that you were then at the best at your highest level? Who would you say would be that?
Well,
yeah.
The other captains. I mean, Sam. I was a captain for 10 years, and I'm proud of that. Sam Davis was a very good offensive lineman, and he also guided and talked with the offensive lineman. Ray Mansfield, my best Steeler buddy, who has passed away, but he was a very good communicator, and was always talking to his teammates about trying harder and making things work and so forth. So he was a very important guy. Rocky Blyer, he was very inspirational, coming back from a wound in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's too many to go through. I mean,
yeah, and it goes back to your character as well, Andy, being willing to take their advice, being willing to step your game to the next level, and become one of the Super Steelers. That's the coolest thing in the world. But you were willing to, and that's the character that you have, be led at times to have success and be a team player.
Yeah, Coach Knoll always, you can't get out of position. You can't be trying to, you can't try to help your buddies. You can't be over there trying to do their job. You got to do your job, and he made that clear. And we all started doing it. We discovered, like, one of our early years when we had a lot of talent. We lost, I think it was we lost 3 out of our first 4 games. And, we discovered it was because guys were trying to help out their buddies. They were over trying to make a play, where they shouldn't have been. And so they didn't dominate, the opponent didn't dominate the field. They didn't make first downs. They just had big plays that beat us.
Yeah. And it's because you guys overextended yourself and weren't listening to one of the greatest coaches of all time. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the winning and how it felt to be a Super Bowl champion. And then we're going to go into, I guess, life after football and the fact of Andy writing books and how books have led to a lot of the help he's been able to help people. We've talked so much about his foundation and the great people he's working with, and we're going to talk and promote this year's Taste of the NFL and more about what Andy's team is going to do there at the Super Bowl. And it's really strange to say the Super Bowl will be in New York. We get back. You're listening to Toldjucation Celebrity Show on the Toldjucation Network. You're going to be cold, Andy, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Toldjucation Celebrity Show, powered by the Insightful Players series on the Simply G Media Network. You can go to insightfulplayer.com to find out more information on Coach Chrissy Carew and the great Insightful Players. And it's so amazing to learn about all these great NFL players that are looking to give back. And Andy, it definitely goes back to one of the things I think that made the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that was the Chief. The Chief was another part of that puzzle that made you guys champions. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes. I mean, the Chief was a wonderful guy. I mean, he would come. He would be at every practice, rain or snow. It didn't matter. He would be out there and be watching the practice, and then afterwards he'd come in the locker room, and pat you on the back and ask if you're okay, how's your injuries, and that sort of thing. So he really cared about his players, and he got a very personal relationships with them, and I think it was we just always felt like we were playing for a great organization, quality people, and it makes you want to try even harder.
Now, tell us about when you finally won that Super Bowl. How did it feel?
Well, it felt almost unbelievable. I mean, Ray Mansell and I, who went through those bad '60s, we kept saying, "Are we this good? I mean, is this possible?" We weren't sure. We couldn't imagine being in a Super Bowl and then winning it. And but going into that game, a lot of people, the media, picked the Vikings because they said the Steelers, this is their first time. The Vikings had already been there. Steelers would be very nervous about all the media pressure and so forth. And they have what's called a media day early in the week, and it's from 9 till noon or something. And we went to it, and the opposite occurred. It was really funny actually because they had tables for all the stars, a table for Bradshaw and a table for Joe Green and, those kind of guys. And they had a big table for Ray Mansell and myself. And about halfway through the hour, everybody was at our table. Not because we were the big stars or but because we had these funny stories about the 60s and how bad we were. and the media loved it. And so at the very end when they said, okay, it's time for you to go, and the media got up to go, Ray Mansell said, no, sit down. I have more stories to tell you.
and that's
so much for the media pressuring us to not be able to play.
And again, this was in New Orleans, if I'm correct, and this was before there was no Superdome at this point. The Superdome was being built, and it was one of those cold weather games, right? Almost.
No, it was. Yeah, I like cold weather to play in because if you don't get tired, but it was also tricky. One of the really great things that happened, we had worn certain shoes for our artificial turf in Three Rivers, and they had worked. I won't go into the names of the shoes, but and the ones we all used worked very well as Spurs. We went out on the field the morning of the game, or right before the game, the warm up, and we're slipping and sliding. We can't keep our feet. It's just ridiculous, and you can't play like that. Football, you need to get good footing. Anyway, we went into the locker room, and we were complaining about it, and the equipment manager, Tony Parisi, says, well, I got a whole bunch of shoes from a Canadian company, and I think they've got much more cleats and so forth, and I think they'll work. Sure enough, they did, and that could be a big reason we won.
Because it was a low scoring game for sure, and I remember this because again I was not. If I'm remembering the year, it was 74, right? 70. Am I on the right year?
Yeah, it was the 74 season, but the game was probably in January of 75. But
I was 2 years old, so I am just a great historian of the game, especially that time. And I was talking to somebody about the great character of Bud Grant as well. Bud Grant wrote a memoir, and I interviewed the co-author, and just a fascinating man as well. So two great coaches for that Super Bowl. What a matchup, Noel versus Grant, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the Viking coaches made some mistakes that were critical. Like for example, one of the things they did was run at Joe Green, and that was the old school thing where you run at the opponent's strength and stand up to it. Well, that didn't work.
No, again, this team, and it's very interesting. I think there was somebody out there that's talked about it. And they've asked lots of Super Bowl decade winners, and they think that you guys are tops, that no one ever could, the Super Steelers, the 4 Super Bowls, could ever top this team, these players. And I'm sure you agree with it as well, that you guys are the best team of any decade, for sure.
Well, I think there's no other team that did 4 out of 6 Super Bowls. So Until somebody does that, then we'll compare them.
Exactly, for sure. So basically, winning that Super Bowl, an amazing thing. We talked about athletes and how they celebrate championships. Very interesting. Roberto Clemente, we had Al Oliver on talking about Roberto and stuff. And I like always bringing up this Pittsburgh connection because that's the key thing that you guys Pittsburghers love all Pittsburgh sports. It's such a great community, and if you play for one team, you're following what's going on in the other. And Roberto, when he won the World Series in '60, he celebrated with the fans. So what did Andy Russell do that night at the Super Bowl? Was it like kind of hanging out and just celebrating like crazy? And who did you hang out with and all that stuff after winning the Super Bowl?
Well, the Steelers had a major party that was primarily for the players and their families. So we weren't really out with our fans. But I know Ray and I went out after the big party and on the Bourbon Street, and there were a lot of Steeler fans yelling and shouting, and so it was great to be with them. So I've always said we have the best fans in the world.
You do, yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course the Pirates, and the thing was that it's just amazing how they've supported us, and they even supported us pretty good in the '60s when we were bad. Right. Occasionally they threw snowballs at us,
So you win you win 2 Super Bowls, and how did you finally decide you're going to retire? That's another tough situation to say, I'm going to hang it up, especially hearing your passion in your career and having success that you did as an NFL player. To say, I'm going to say goodbye to this game, that must have been hard.
Well, people sometimes say, what did you do after football? Well, I had started my business in 1969, my own business called Russell Investments, and I was syndicating deals for Wall Street. In the first year, 1969, I made more money than the Steelers were paying me.
Right.
And my wife said, "Why don't you retire? You could get hurt." I said, "No, it's a passion. I want to, maybe I want to see if we can win half our games someday." And of course, we did a lot better than that. And I retired in '76. But I would go to business meetings at the Duquesne Club before practice, after practice, Mondays. It was 24/7. Because I realized I couldn't do it just after in the off season. I had to do it year round, and so I was getting where the business was being so big that I had to focus on it and I had to take care of it. That's part of it. Now the other part of it is that I was in 14 years, and you get beat up pretty well after you've broken all your fingers, you've broken your thumbs, you've hurt every single joint in your body, badly, and then you realize that, and you can't quite play the way you used to be able to because you lost a step, you just can't, and you're much more susceptible to more injuries. So Ray Mansell and I just decided that this will be our best year, 1976. And we'll see if we can win 3 in a row. And, we almost did it, but didn't quite get it done. And we retired, and I think we both discovered some other things to replace football, which were quite exciting, too.
Yeah, you're a fantastic entrepreneur who, again, started before life after football. But when it comes to Andy Russell writing books and sharing with people, I've noticed that you've written a few books and different things telling about the days of the Steelers and your life and different aspects. How difficult or was it to transition to be an author? And is it hard to say, especially to talk about yourself a lot? It seems like you're always looking and talking, and that's what insightful players are in my mind. They're thinking of others more than themselves, and they're looking, and they're very humble. And Andy, the first time I talked to you, I see that you're such a humble person, and that goes back to the character growing up that we can go back to other interviews and check out. But being an author, was that difficult to put it all on paper and put it into books?
Well, I really have enjoyed writing my books. The first one was Steeler Odyssey, then an Odd Steelers Journey. I called it that because Jack Ham told me that's what I should have named the first one. instead of a Steeler Odyssey, I should have called it a Not Steelers Journey. And so that was the second book. And then the third book was Beyond the Goalpost. And most of those stories, well, in the first few books, there's a lot of stories about what it was like being a Steeler and all the experiences we had in winning various games, winning Super Bowls, things like that. The challenge of the game itself. But and then there was also in the Steeler Odyssey a lot of chapters about some of the great players, the Franco chapter, Jack Ham chapter, and so forth. And so, and I talked about in great detail why they were such great players. And I had fun doing that, and I enjoyed it. Also talking about my own challenges where, I made a big mistake or something. Nobody's perfect. You got to play that game the best you can, and sometimes you're going to struggle. And I had to admit that. So it was fun to kind of just write about it, and people say I should be in a thing. I'm not going to worry about that. That's for other people to decide, and I'm not really interested in discussing that.
Well, let's hope it happens someday. Because again, you were part of one of the greatest teams of all time. You were a great Pittsburgh Steeler, and again, look at how you help charitably and all these different things. So tell me, I got two more questions pretty much before we run out of time, and I appreciate you taking the time. Again, we're talking to Andy Russell, Super Steeler. The first one is specifically enough about taste for the NFL, how our listeners, you can explain a little bit to them again every year what happens, and then we're going to talk about being an insightful player.
Yeah, the Taste of the NFL is a event that it's my 17th year, and Ray Mansfield had done it 4 or 5 years before that, and it's to stop hunger in America. It's based in Minneapolis, but it's an annual party at the Super Bowl, and they call it a party with a purpose, and it's to raise as much money as possible to give to the food banks at all 32 cities. There's 32 teams in the NFL, and the party is a lot of fun because it has a top chef from every city, every NFL city, and one ex-former player like myself, where I've been representing the Steelers, and it's kind of amazing because the Steelers always have the longest line. And it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the Steelers. The people get in line for the Steelers. It's not the food. Maybe, he's doing pierogies or whatever, but it's because they're the best fans in the world. And we have an annual contest, which is called the Kick Hunger Challenge. And, if fans want to get into their internet and go to Taste the NFL, they'll see the Kick Hunger Challenge, and they could put in, if $10 is worth 80 meals.
Wow.
It'll buy 80 meals. So every little bit would be very significant if people could help. And I think it's a wonderful charitable effort. But there's also another little contest they have, which is a helmet contest, and they have each player sign his helmet, and then you auction it off. Well, I've won that helmet contest the last 4 years. Why? Well, it's not because I'm the most famous guy there. I mean, Bart Starr's there, all these Hall of Famers are there, 18 Hall of Famers. But it's because I get a pre-bid from a friend who is a fundraiser extraordinaire for Economics Pennsylvania, which is also one of my big charitable efforts that I really feel strongly about, teaching our young people financial literacy. So anyway, we won that helmet contest, and I bet you couldn't guess your wildest imagination what Fritz Heinemann was able to sell that helmet for. Now, I added Jack Ham and Jack Lambert's signature. What would your wildest imagination that helmet would go for?
Okay, I'm going to go with, let's say, sign $10,000.
Nope, it was $100,000.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's
he sold $51,000 lottery tickets for the helmet, And then one guy said, if you can pull this off, I'll double it.
Oh, wow. That's tremendous.
It's got to be the most money any football memorabilia buff has ever paid for an NFL helmet.
Amazing. Definitely amazing. And one of the amazing things about you, Andy, is, and when I heard you were an insightful player, I said to Chrissy, I said, wow, he definitely belongs in that category. And I've interviewed about 20 or about 10 of them so far, and they all are just tremendous guys giving back to the community and are true givers and are truly understand what they did in the NFL and how they want to help others. But when Chrissy asked you to be an insightful player, how does it feel to be an insightful player?
Well, I was honored to be invited to join that group because I think it's right down the line of what we set up our Russell Charitable Foundation to do is just to help children and to get advice if we can, give students all kinds of things that we do for various children throughout our state, but also throughout the country.
Yeah, it definitely aligns to it, and such great players for sure, and such unbelievable ones. And Andy, as I said off air, we're going to definitely work together to try to get what Chrissy's doing in the schools in Pittsburgh for sure, and hopefully we can be working together on this in 2014. Because I think that what she's doing, how she is able to help youth, is fantastic, and both of us are very well connected in the Pittsburgh area involved with schools, and let's try to make that work. But also, where can our listeners find out more information on you and your foundation and everything? What website?
Okay, our foundation is, I don't know how many years old it is. My wife is sitting next to me here on our car, and what do you think, Sin? 15 years old, and we have our annual golf tournament that raises the money for it, along with UPMC. They are very helpful, and we give money to the UPMC Concussion Center. We give, as I said before, money to Economics Pennsylvania, and we give. My wife is a huge animal lover. She's on the board of Animal Friends and the Zoo, and we give money to both of those because we love animals. And a lot of other, various things.
And that's
wounded warriors, and so it's hard for us to get the amount of money up there where it can sustain itself because we're spending too much of it.
And the website is for our listeners. Where do you go?
The website is andyrussell.org.
Yeah, and you do a tremendous golf tournament. And for our Pittsburgh listeners, or anywhere in the country, if you're a golfer, this is awesome. I'm telling you, I observed a lot of it. I interviewed some fantastic athletes, but to reserve your spot to get to golf with these great legends. They just give back. They're just so awesome. I remember Thursday night at the cocktail and auction, and how willingness to talk to people, and you definitely pick the right people to come to this tournament every year.
Yeah, we have a great list of contributors and donors who have just been fantastic, and they come to our gala the Thursday night before, which is always at the Heinz Field clubs, and also they play the golf tournament the following day, and that's also tremendous contribution. So we really appreciate it.
Okay, Andy, good talking to you. Safe travels in your trip, and we'll definitely stay in touch, and we'll hook up in a couple months to kind of have you back on to get us some updates and promote the tournament. So good talking to you, man.
Yeah, good talking to you, Neil, and appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, I always love to, and I'd bring you on monthly just to talk about the Steelers, because I think you definitely need to look at writing the book with Triumph Books. I'm going to have to go to Triumph and say, you got to write this one about 100 things you need to do before you die as a Steeler fan. They did one for a lot of teams. I don't think they've done it for the Steelers yet. I'm going to have to reach out. You be the man to write that for sure. But good talking to you.
Okay, good talking to you, Jim.
All right, see you, Andy. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
You're listening to the Total Education Celebrity Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.